beside Jill in the band.
Sorry, John, what did you say?
I play trumpet and played in several bands, but a long time ago, I sat beside Jill in a band.
Oh, cool.
You should come back, John. We need trumpets.
Yeah, you probably remember I'm not very good, Jill.
It's close to where you live. We're going to be practicing at St. Andrew's School. That's pretty close to you.
I live out at Elk Lake now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
St. Andrews is on Mackenzie.
Mm-hmm. So look, you guys, if you don't come here, you don't get the cookies. Yeah. It's the deal.
You get to watch me eat them instead.
I made some today and I just finished eating one. Sorry.
You can make cookies and only eat one?
Oh no, that's about the third one.
Oh yeah, I'm wondering about that. There you go.
Every time I go past the kitchen counter, you know, where the box is. Yeah. I have a young man that I tutor. I've been doing it for about 12 years or so now. And he has some delay, but we bake sometimes. So it's great. He can, you know, he reads recipes and measures all the stuff out and does all that kind of stuff. And it's a bonus for me.
Yeah, okay.
You've been tutoring the same fellow for 12 years.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, I had him actually. I had him at Bayside School, and he went all the way through Stellies, and now he's working, and he's about 27 years old, and he's a great young man, and I'm kind of part of the family.
That's super.
Wow, good deal. Does anybody know of any good Indian cooking classes? I'm tired of my curry turning out different every time I make it.
That's the way curry is.
That sounds like a feature, not a bug.
That's part of the adventure.
Yeah, I know.
If you lived in Vancouver, I'd have a suggestion, but not here in Victoria. I have no idea.
Is that right now?
Well, Cook Culture used to invite numerous chefs. I've done a few of theirs, but I don't know if they still do that anymore.
I know the community kitchen at the Hudson Public Market quite often gives classes, but I don't know what if it's in any particular style.
Community kitchen?
Okay. Yes.
I just give it up and get the red curry at Bantai. It's perfect.
Either that or go to Mantra.
Oh my goodness. A very important announcement. We have just received a second key to the lockup here, with the implication that Chris is allowed not to be in charge. That is wonderful. Okay, I'm going to make a really public announcement. I will be the curator of the second key. If somebody needs it, because I'm not here and Chris is not here some week, that would be a terrible week. You know that those are the two keys that the community center has let us have.
There are more locker keys around, but we don't only have 2 building keys.
Well, that stands to reason.
Yeah.
So Jim, the only person I heard from was Jeff wanted to talk about a few things. So and when you're soliciting topics, well, they'll see if anybody else steps forward.
Maybe Miles could talk about Mauna Loa, since he's got a Hawaiian background there.
No, I'm in Fiji.
Oh, okay.
Close enough.
Close enough.
Jim, give me just a few minutes for the one SIG that's this week and the one next week.
All right, got you. Diane saw my calendar note about having a SIG coming up, and she was asking me what it was because the only SIG she knew was the SIG Sauer handgun. So she was slightly confused. Anyway, Jeff, do you have something you wanted to present tonight, or?
It was just a request, actually. Just
Okay.
wanted to make people aware. I'm thinking forward to Astronomy Day, given the stability of the museum. The welcome desk really benefited from the observer handbooks that people had. Because the observer handbooks have come out recently, it may be that people are already starting to think about throwing them away. But if you have a 2022 and you're going to be ridding yourself of it, hang on to it for a few months because they're really hot items at the welcome desk, and we can certainly use them. Same holds true with current astronomy magazines or Skywatch. I mean, if you're getting those regularly and you tend to throw them out after a couple of months, hang on to them from now going forward to the spring, because current magazines are great. The last welcome desk was a little bit like a doctor's office, so I felt very comfortable, where some of the magazines were, 3 or 4 years old. I think they were from the archives, courtesy of Lauri from the archives up at the observatory. So just, if you can hang on to it, that'd be great.
How would what would the best way be to get those to you, Jeff?
Well, I've got a box, so if I can post my email, and if people have them and would prefer to get rid of them immediately rather than holding on to them for a few months, you can get in touch with me, and I'm more than happy to arrange to get hold of them from you.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
It's useful to have them, and I'll post my email in the chat box here.
I have a suggestion. We are planning to decouple our AGM and the social event, which in past years were one and the same night.
Oh.
And we could make a plea for people, to come to this social night. I think what was discussed at the last council meeting, and I think it's a clever idea, is we will announce the cookies are over here.
Oh,
yeah.
2 choices too.
The prizes will be announced at the AGM, and then we'll hold the social event a week or two later, and we will be able to hand out the certificates at that time. Anyway, I love your idea, Jeff, because I feel kind of silly throwing it out, but I don't want to keep them. But if you're saying that the public actually wants them, that's great.
It's a good way to engage in conversations. Freebies are amusingly always picked up, but it's an interesting way to start conversations. So absolutely, they're very useful.
Thought just struck me too that they don't necessarily have to be current either. There are a lot of articles and generic information in the handbooks that would be really useful to somebody who was just interested in the hobby, even without the current data tables.
Yeah, good point. And certainly if people have older handbooks, especially that they want to part with, that's still very welcome.
I asked for current handbooks last year because some people don't use them.
That's right. Some people
And
don't.
I had more offers than I had people to give them to, so maybe we can solve that problem this year. I don't know how. But there are several members who don't use the handbooks. They're willing to give them to people, or give them to us to give to people.
Oh, I like this as a discussion. How do people use their handbooks? What are the things, what are the reasons that you open up your book? Because I think some people don't realize all the sections in there. Does anybody have?
So you're old enough to do it just for the articles, right? Not for the pictures? Just teasing.
Oh, thank you.
Considering there's only 2 pictures on the front and back cover.
To be honest, I give it a read when I get it, and I look for the articles. I read the articles I'm interested in, but then I don't tend to use it as a guidebook. I usually get that stuff online, so it's, I know it's there, but I have to admit I don't often consult it.
Okay.
I think it's good for me. It's actually good for definitions, because sometimes you kind of, quasi understand a concept, but if you want to see the definition, you can look it up. It's often a good source for that.
So, Lauri, are you going to be writing something every year now in the handbook?
Well, it's for a little bit until it's time to pass it on to someone else who would like to do it. Yes, so I probably will do it again next year, but again, it changes just depending on who is authoring the section and what they want to focus in on, and so it was it took a few years off my life, but it was good.
Ah, why?
A very nice section. Well done.
Thank you.
Jeff, I wonder whether we shouldn't maybe extend the call to maybe older books as well, because there's a lot of books which have fairly consistent content in them, and often there are new editions that come out. So,
David, that's a wonderful idea. I mean, certainly anything astronomy related. I was just focusing on the handbook in particular in the magazines, because they seem to be the most popular with people. Certainly, if there's any books that people are comfortable parting with, I mean, they would be more than welcome, and we can use them at the front desk also. And certainly any of that kind of thing is helpful in terms of seeding conversation. I'm looking at seeding conversation both in terms of public interest in astronomy and looking for recruitment for RASC in Victoria, just to see if we can sort of ease that along.
Yeah, I have a question for Lauri. In some recent public outreach meetings, they mentioned the moon finders as a resource. I don't think I've ever seen one.
They're called the Moon Gazer Guide.
Oh, okay.
And they're fairly simple. They're not a really a real
a detailed moon map.
It doesn't give huge amounts of information, but it's something to give out. They didn't have enough printed, and they have to do a reprinting of it, and that's why we haven't seen them. All like the different centers were giving them away, and we haven't had some new ones. So I have ordered some new ones. And just by the way, just on a little segue, is that I talked to Stephanie Mitchelluk at the National today, and our calendars should be here within a week. So I'll get them out to everybody.
I have a question for Jeff. Jeff, have you guys ever thought of buying a couple, a few issues of H.A. Rays of the Stars? The classic it's absolutely fabulous. I've had mine for like 50 years. I bet you could resell them,
and who doesn't like Curious George?
Oh, there you go, Lauri. That's it. That's it right there. That is the best book ever.
Yeah. I like the constellation figures as well, Gary, as opposed to other ones.
Absolutely.
John, did you have a question?
Just a comment on the handbook. I know that not everyone probably uses it a lot. I do. And I just want to comment that it's actually a very good thing to recommend to new people. So I like the idea of having them available at Astronomy Day. The reason for that is, you control the internet, but you need quite a bit of kind of basic knowledge yourself, or the ability to filter out crap, because there's a heck of a lot of stuff on the internet that is misleading. And the handbook is a wonderful guide. I mean, you can start by just looking to see how telescopes work and how binoculars work and how to polar align. And you don't get misled. You get really accurate, straightforward information. It takes a little work to read it. You don't get it on a video, but it's very good. And it also has wonderful lists of objects to look at in the sky. It's got wonderful lists of what's happening this month in the sky for each month of the year. I think it probably should get used more. For one thing, one of the features of it is that every article in it is really well thought out, well written, and it has, really good information. There are a few errors in the thing, and when there are errors, they fix them. So I really recommend it.
Yeah, I would say I use Observer's Handbook rarely, but one thing I value it for is the lists of eclipses in particular, and object lists and that sort of thing. It's good for that. I don't usually use the calendar type information because I get that online or through my planetary program.
Yeah, I use the planetary program much more than I use the handbook. But things like the wigglegrams of the Jovian moons through the months.
That's a good name for it.
I think that's super. I really that's something which it's probably online, but I know exactly where to find it. And so when you look at Jupiter, you can see here's where the satellites are now, and if you go the next day, you can see how they're going and why you only see 2 today when you saw 3 yesterday.
It'll tell you when the transits are as well.
Yeah, I mean it's got all the information, but that is a particularly good graphic.
Another really good thing in it that, you might get asked sometimes about rainbows and moonbows and other kinds of phenomena like that. The section in the handbook on those kind of phenomena is just fabulous. It's got the science. It's also got how you go about seeing them and whatnot. So that's another section. It's not to be missed, really.
And the section on tides is amazing. I can't understand all of it at all, but if you want anything on tides, it's all in there.
Dennis has this out.
Yeah.
So Dennis, have you ever opened it? And if you do, what do you look at in there?
I've only done this so far. I just got it last week, and I'm fully actually intending on looking at it very carefully, but yeah, I wasn't sure at first when everybody's talking about the handbook. I thought it was called the Observer's Guide. And I thought, is that the same thing we're talking about? But obviously it is. And yeah, just sort of a quick flip through. It looks like there's a lot of really good information there. So yeah, I will definitely be getting into it. I just haven't had a chance yet.
I think people should know is there's lots of articles that stay stable, but there is right at the beginning something, I think it's in the table of contents that puts a star or it's bolded. It says the things that are new this year. And that's one of the things when I do get my copy. It's the first thing I say is what did they just change this year?
That's how I found out Lauri's new article was through that. So it's very good. But I think that it's not really a handbook. It's an encyclopedia masquerading as a handbook. It's a really valuable resource of information.
You know, you look smarter just looking. You feel smarter just looking at the pictures.
That's why you should open it.
I'm a bit of a pessimist too. I keep expecting my my computer, my tablet, whatever it is, to fail or the internet to shut down. So I want to have a hard copy reference near at hand.
I'm also very proud of the fact that the Americans use this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I walked into the astronomy club down there with mine in my pocket, and I feel very smug about it.
And it's useful if you don't observe where you don't happen to have internet.
There's an American edition now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Observer's Handbook has rescued one or two observatory technicians who have lost connectivity at one of the professional observatories. They keep them in. They keep them there. Sometimes they need them. Manual pointing, etc.
Yeah, one thing you should be aware of is that the handbook is actually aimed at professional astronomers just as much as amateurs. And it gets used, you'll find it in every major observatory. They refer to it for lots of things too.
If you ever want to get confused about time, read the section on time.
Oh, yes, that one is an absolute delight. That's being a clock hobbyist too. I was going through there and I was reading it aloud and Diane was kind of nodding her head. And, when are you going to finish?
Nodding off, you mean. Yeah, I've often thought there should be a tour of the Observer's Handbook offered because it would be,
well, there was.
It would be
Chris.
Yeah, Chris first did.
Oh, Chris did it for
them.
yeah. Oh, you picked some of the
I went through the whole book.
You went through the whole book?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Section by section by week.
Yep. Are you nodding off? Maybe we should do that again.
Chris, if you were interested in doing that, perhaps recording it, that would be, I think, an excellent recording piece of information for us to have.
Lauri, was there not a national initiative to do that?
Yes.
Or?
Yeah, James Edgar, right? Chris Gainor? James Edgar did one in the pandemic, I think either 20 or 21. And it was about like 6 weeks or 7 weeks. And just once a week, he would just go through certain sections. And I went through that. I didn't do Chris's at the time, but I did James's, and he's the editor, and so he knows it really well. And it was great. Like I certainly found out things about that I didn't know were in there before, for sure.
Are they posted on the national site?
I don't know whether I will check. I will find out whether or not those were recorded.
Yes,
I think they were put on the YouTube.
Oh,
yeah,
put
they are on YouTube.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So
it looks like they're all there. Yeah, 6 of them. Is that what you said, Lauri?
Yeah, I thought there were 6 or 7 of them anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
A few years ago, when I was in Mexico for a month, I took my observer's handbook with me and I read it cover to cover.
Oh, good for you.
I did, yes. And I underlined and highlighted the things that I had not a clue about. And I came back that year and I said, maybe at one of the Astro Cafes, like, I have no idea what some of this stuff is. And then Chris did his run through and it was just fabulous.
I was just looking at my 2022 book and I realized that I'm going to have to remember to take all my copper book darts out of the old one before I recycle it. So it does get used. David, would you like to go ahead and you had some information?
Yeah, there's one SIG. This is always sneaks up on me when the first Thursday or the first Tuesday kind of really kind of sneak up on me. But yeah, so the electronically assisted astronomy group is meeting this Thursday, and the getting started in astronomy is next week on Tuesday. But I'll mention that again next Monday. I've had some kind of interest about the citizen science group. So I think I will at some point sort of call that SIG. I haven't decided when to do that yet.
You might want to wait till January.
Yeah, I think I will, and I'm going to work on kind of a presentation on maybe AAVSO kind of initiatives, because they're one of the big original citizen science projects. So I'll probably do that at cafe at one of the cafes. Great, thanks.
Okay. Did anybody else have anything they wanted to bring up?
Speaking of January, Chris has pointed out that this wonderful institution, the Astro Cafe, we have a deadline with this room. The custodians want to clean it up and go home around 9 o'clock. And we tend to get more excited than allows a 90-minute meeting. 90-minute, I think usually when there's nothing much going on, does us fine. But when things like Artemis blast off, and then we go way past 9 o'clock. And Chris also pointed out that in Victoria, meetings typically start at 7, not at 7:30. And so just before the Astro Cafe today, I was saying, so how do you change the time? And his suggestion was, why don't we do it in the new year? So we'll keep with this schedule for now, and give people lots of warning, and then start it going at 7. But is there any feedback? Will anybody not come?
Why don't you make Astro Cafe savings time? Just on Mondays, advance or turn the clock back a half hour.
There you go.
Yeah, are there comments about that?
Newfoundland West.
Yeah.
Yeah.
7:30.
I probably wouldn't be able to make it. That just gets to the breaking point. I'm struggling as it is to get here by 7:30.
Okay.
In person, but I could do it virtually, of course.
Or you come,
When you can.
when you can, and you say, I'm not going to record it anymore. And that's also okay. You can.
Oh yeah, other people can do it.
Yeah.
It's not hard.
It's not hard. And if you put in such service for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about, is that some people would say they can't make it.
Yeah,
So
So I guess let us know, basically, if that, you know, if you're happy with it as it is, knowing that we need to cut off at 9. Just we got onto a very interesting topic at about 2 minutes to 9 last week. And then we had to cut Peter Jedicke off in terms of not being able to talk as much about the meteor they'd seen. And I guess he personally didn't see it, but his friends did.
Yeah, and he's on the road right now, so he can't come into the meeting even virtually this time, next week. So the other thing you can do is you could go back to a virtual meeting. And not a lot of people show up to in person. I don't know if that's heresy or not, but I just thought I'd bring this subject up.
Yeah.
How many? We're 5 tonight. What have we had in person?
Typically, we've been averaging, when I counted it up to about 10.
Yeah, we have had up to 10. Yeah,
I think our peak night has been. We actually had 14 people here one night.
Yeah.
That was when Samantha Jewett was here?
Probably.
Or when David was giving out was doing the program with the SQMs.
Yeah, you know, you could do it maybe once a month, do an in-person once a month. That's a possibility.
Are we ever going back to you, Vic?
Well, yeah.
Well, there's another question, or do we want to make that a virtual meeting then too? Because maybe people won't come to that either, right? I don't know.
Fairfield Gonzalez Fairfield Gonzalez, no, let me try this again. Fairfield Community Center offers a free Monday night room, does it not?
Oh, we pay for it.
No, but they offer a free Monday night room.
Oh, you're talking about the facility on Cook Street?
No, the one
talking about this place.
This place.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
we pay for this.
Yes, I know, but they do offer. It is my understanding that to a community group, they offer a free Monday night once a month.
So potentially, Margie, could that mean that we wouldn't have the time restriction on that room, perhaps, or?
Well, if it's the same facility, I would say it's the same time.
I would say
same custodian.
The same custodian.
Oh yeah, okay, that makes sense.
But it is free.
Well, we paid $20 for this room.
Yeah,
so it's almost free.
No, it's almost free.
If anyone's rented rooms, you know that's below scale.
Instead of 400 or 500, yes.
Oh, crazy amounts, yeah.
I do recommend, if you can, do come on down. For one thing, you get cookies.
Cookies!
See, now maybe you just have to improve the quality of the cookies that you're offering, and that would bring more people in.
Yeah.
It's not jet puffs today.
Or bring in a barista and have an espresso machine. Yeah, lots of crazy ideas.
From our membership list,
$500 room rent.
From our membership list, do we have a sense of where the center of mass of all of our membership is? Because I don't know if Fairfield, for me, it's 45 minutes each way to get into that part of town. And that could be true for just 2 or 3 people, but it could also be true for a lot of people. Like getting that far down into the southern end of the city is a lot of driving.
Well, I think UVic probably would be more central.
I know UVic is almost perfect for me. It's just literally a 10-minute walk from where I live. But I do know that there are a lot of people who live in other parts of the city that it's
Uptown Center.
If only we had a member who was doing data analytics and could do mapping and figure out where that center of mass is.
That's right. I would need data though. We need data.
That's available.
You have the membership list, and all you have to do is
and I have the addresses. Oh, you're right. I could do this. I could do this. You're absolutely right. Thank you. Another task.
The answer's near Duncan, I think.
Yeah, it's closer to, I'm pretty sure it is technically closer to Duncan. That is true, but
yeah,
I still find it's very hard to find a place.
I know. I'm
But
sure
we
it
might
is.
find a center of a bigger group for sure.
Yeah.
So I just looked up the Fairfield thing. It's not every Monday.
Once a
And
month.
yeah, I just put it in the chat.
The free Monday is not every.
Yeah,
every
so
Monday.
it's not every Monday.
Yeah.
And then some of them, because they list the ones that are available. So it looks like some are probably already booked. I mean, we fit the criteria because anybody can show up to the Astro Cafe. So it's a free event for anybody. So that does fit the criteria, but it wouldn't be every Monday.
Yeah, I would also probably be in a room of their choice, and you wouldn't have all the facilities that you've got for video and whatnot right
Oh,
now.
no. I mean, if we're going to do it at Fairfield, this is great.
Yeah.
We've got the storage room that they let us put the equipment. We've got the 2 big screens. This is very good.
It is, yeah.
They have free parking as well. Not every place has that.
That's true.
Certainly not you, Vic.
Oh, and the parking's gone up, of course, since we were there last. So
I just can't rationalize that much.
What's the nightly parking now, Chris?
I'll have to look it up, but I think it went up in September again.
It was $2, but it's way like that. $4 now.
Yeah,
It's more like $4. Yeah, they're really
Wow.
getting greedy.
yeah, $4. Yeah.
Well, that would be because they're not opening up rooms to meetings. So they have to grab what money they can because they would have fewer cars parked in the parking lot. Because I don't see us getting there forever.
Mm.
Does anybody have any astronomies to show? Any nice pictures?
I got, maybe I can just give you a very brief update on Artemis.
Thank
Uh,
And the rocket went off on Saturday that launched the UVic student satellite to the space station.
Come on, what's happening? So you see this picture here?
Yep.
So that's a pretty neat picture of the
Lovely.
Moon and the Earth.
That's a real picture.
That is a real picture.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
That's stunning.
It's and actually it's part of kind of a film sequence where you can see the moon passing in front of the Earth. Where can I find it? I think it's at this page here. Just a second.
What does the SDN stand for? Oh yeah.
So Chris, we can coin a new term, crescent Earth. You would have phases too.
That's a gibbous Earth.
Yeah. Yes.
That's one heck of a selfie stick shot. That's all I can say.
Yeah, if you go to this page I just put up on the chat, you can see some of the photos from Artemis. And just a minute, I'm sort of trying to maneuver 3 things here in the but anyway, Artemis is today, it's halfway through its mission. It was launched, on November 19th, and it will be returning to Earth on the December 11th, I believe. And on Friday, they had a burn of the engine. It had been sort of close to the moon for a number of days before that, but it's now in this orbit, which takes it a long way away from the moon, and then it's going to come closer into the moon in a few days, very close to the moon actually, and then there will be another burn which will put it on the path back to Earth. I think that's. Let me see if I can find that date. Blah 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 blah. December 1st is when the next burn is. But there have been some close-up photos of the moon, although they're kind of washed out. I'm hoping that they'll eventually get some photos. The close-up photos of the moon, better ones on the second pass, or from better cameras than the ones they've released so far. I'm not sure whether they've actually received everything and released it, but anyway, these just this just came out today. Actually, Don Moffat spotted it before anybody else, and then they just put this up on that Flickr page I was talking about. So anyway, that's what's happening with Artemis right now.
So Chris, I once ran into a guy that said any picture like that is obviously faked in Hollywood because there's no stars visible in it.
Yes. Well, I mean that's simply because you know,
I know why. I'm just saying there's people.
Yeah, in this case, the spacecraft or the, you know, it's usually talked about with the lunar surface pictures, and it's the, you know, it's the surface, you know, washes them out. So
yeah.
So anyway, it's
yeah. I have a question for you, Chris. I've been following the mid-infrared instrument on James Webb, and they talked about friction issues with that they've addressed. And they point you at a blog, which I can't find. Do you know anything more about that? What did they find out and how did they fix it?
Oh, let's see. Just hang on a minute. I think I spoke about it a couple of weeks ago, and then I've kind of forgotten about what it was I said. Okay. Now I will put on the chat, the address for the web of blogs, and and right now the headline is NASA web issue coming this week. There'll be a new issue, and you go down a little bit. I'm still going down looking for it. Okay, and they put up something on November 8th. Blah, 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 blah. Let's see. Well, basically, what they did is that they figured out when and under what conditions they would get friction on the wheel. And so they just avoid those situations. That's,
yeah, I read that part too. You don't know anything more than that, then?
I don't know.
Okay.
You know, maybe, yeah. In a few weeks, I'm going to go to the American Astronomical Society, and maybe I'll run into somebody who can give me more of the dope on it. But anyway,
okay, thanks.
Chris, you'd mentioned that the ship, when it was being raised in orbit around the moon, was going to pass through either L4 or L5.
L1 and L2.
Oh, not that I know of, no.
It's L2.
L2, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the significance of that was, so L2...
You're talking about Artemis?
Yeah, well, L2 would be a little bit less stable. I thought they were checking for stability in the orbit. L2's in the opposition, right?
The distant reverse orbit passes through the two Lagrange points on the line between the Earth and the Moon. L2 is the one that's further away. L1 is the one that's between the two. And it is part of this orbit which is so stable that they don't have to put as much correction in on it. They could keep it there for decades. And so this is just a half of an orbit, but it's where they would put Gateway if Gateway ends up going up there, because it will take so little fuel to keep it there.
So yeah, I appreciate the significance of the Lagrange points. I just was wondering whether there's any significance to the fact that that Orion craft was passing through there, or whether they were actually checking anything in terms of the stability there, or was just coincidental.
Well, my understanding is they want to see that it's a test, because they've never tried the distant DRO, so the distant retrograde orbit, except maybe they figured that a Chinese Chang'e craft also did one, but that they did just by tracking it. The Chinese never actually said that was their intention, but it looks like they went pretty close to it. Sorry, Chris.
Yeah, well, you're right. I think they're kind of trying different trajectories, because they have they wanted to try a longer mission, and I think the last time you were talking a bit about the mascons they have on the moon. You know, like the moon is kind of like a raisin loaf, and the mascons, mass concentrations, actually have increased gravity, which changes orbits around the moon when they're close to the moon, as in the case of Apollo. You know, that was one reason why Armstrong and Aldrin didn't land exactly where they thought they would, because they had to do a little bit more work on the mascons. They certainly knew about them by that stage, but they had to perfect things a little bit. And then with the subsequent landings, they were able to do pinpoint landings. And
actually, hang on. Sorry, Dennis, David, you've got your hands up here. Sorry to interrupt you here, Chris, but I'm talking about the orbit. I'm going to share a video here that was posted on Chris Hadfield's Facebook page, and it's really interesting, showing the difference in the with the various orbits. So hang on a second here.
Go ahead.
This is okay. Now is that coming up? Good. Yes. This is the actual orbit that from without. How would I say this? 1 second here. I'll go to the. Pull this down. This is the image that we have, the visual of the orbit that will be followed around the moon. But this is considering the just the frame of reference here is just looking at the moon. But if you look at the actual Earth orbit without looking at that, the orbit gets really, really interesting, and you can see how it does pass behind into the L2 position. So here we have the approach to the moon, gravitational grab. And there's a nice pass through the L2. And again, another gravitational grab, and then back down to the Earth's, or for re-entry. So it's just, it's a fascinating orbit. We think of it, we have this image that it's going to be orbiting the moon, but it's not. It's just sort of these two slingshots past. So the actual orbital passes are only those two passes, and then back. So I thought that was very interesting myself. That may or may not be. May or not be appropriate to that, but I thought it was interesting.
Well, it shows that certainly some use of the Lagrange points as part of the orbit.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry, Dennis, David. Actually, Dennis, I think you might have been first there. You had a question, or?
Yeah, yeah. Again with Artemis, I recall right after launch or shortly after launch, there was an article, something to do with NASA not allowing news outlets or whatever, people to photograph the site, something to do with damage on the site, something like that. Does anybody know anything about that, or is there any follow-up on that kind of thing?
You're talking about the landing site?
Well, the launch site. I think it was a launch site, wasn't it?
No, well, at the launch site where Artemis was launched, lots of people took photos. A friend of mine sent me photos he took, and they also, there's a couple of hoops you have to jump through, but you can set up your cameras closer to the pad, and generally, what happens is that they are set off by the noise from the rocket at the launch, or by a timer. But I think usually the former rather than the latter, because you can't have a thing where you say send a signal to the camera to take pictures, because that could interfere with other things. But there's, as far as I know, that's going on as always.
I thought it was after the launch, actually, the actual launch site. There was something about they were not allowing photography after that. Something to do with that, but
that's news to me.
Oh, okay. Anyway, that was my question.
David.
Yes, I'm being very opportunistic here, and I saw an opportunity to actually correct Randy.
Yay!
About the moon. And that was clearly a crescent moon, not a gibbous moon that was in that picture.
Oh, Chris, show the picture again.
Gibbous Earth.
Okay, just a second here.
Depends
All
on
right.
your perspective.
I think they were both gibbous.
What did I do here? Just give me a second.
Well, it depends on where you're observing.
It's a crescent from behind.
It looks gibbous from the other side because you're.
No, okay.
I think that's what he's getting at. Okay.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, and then that picture, it was a waxing gibbous moon and Earth where we. Oh, when was that picture? That was today. Then it's a waxing crescent. Yeah,
it's a crescent. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I've lost kind of the switch for the.
Oh, sorry.
Just a second for the.
It was just an amusement.
Screen. Okay, here we go. Here we go.
Yeah. So from Earth, we're looking at the other side, and we are indeed looking at a crescent. From Earth, looking at the moon.
But it's a
I got it.
So give me a small victory.
Wow, that's impressive, David.
It is cool.
I stand corrected.
Sit correct.
Sorry, Randy.
Reg has his hand up too.
Randy's hand is up as well. It's kind of lost in his background there.
Reg, change the color of your hand.
Oh.
Ask your question.
There he is.
I'll just jump in here. On the 23rd of November, Artemis had a 47-minute period where they lost contact with the device. And I just wondered, Chris or anyone else, if they have figured out what the cause of that was. It's a pretty major problem to have early on in a major spacecraft's life here, to have that sort of disaster.
There was a loss of communications when it passed behind the moon.
Yeah, well, that
was
was for about half an hour. The thing that Reg is talking about, I think, as the Earth goes around, you have to hand over from one station to another. Like there's a station at Goldstone, and then there's the one in Australia. You might remember the movie about that. They used the Parkes radio telescope for a while, but I think they have another one there now. And then they have one in Madrid, and I think they also have one in South Africa now. But I think what happened is that things got screwed up during one of those handovers, and somebody had thrown the wrong switch. It was something like that.
Yeah, it wasn't an occultation loss of signal because it was behind the moon. It was due to a screw up, and it was unexplained and unanticipated, and they're going to have an investigation into it. And I haven't heard anything more. I just wondered if you had.
No.
Somebody got in trouble over it, I'm sure.
Oh yes.
Well, how they conduct their operations under such scrutiny is you got like millions of people looking over your shoulder.
Yeah, they had a press conference today, and yeah, some of the questions are getting kind of picky.
Just FYI, there's several videos on YouTube. One of them says Artemis 1 blast off blows doors off launch pad elevators. So I think that's probably what you're referring to.
Yeah, these launches always do a certain amount of damage, and a friend of mine who was there and who's seen a lot of shuttle launches told me that this was a lot brighter and a lot louder than typical shuttle launch. But yeah, on one of the levels where the doors open, the elevator doors open. They were actually blown in by the force of the launch, even though there's kind of reinforced doors that could handle the shuttle going by. But so they're going to have to strengthen those. You notice when you're watching a launch, just before the engines light, you'll see the water spraying on the pad, and it's not only to cool the pad off. It also attenuates the shock from when the engines light up, and they discovered actually the very first shuttle launch, which had a crew on board, I might add. They discovered that the shock waves from that first launch, which is greater than they anticipated, had actually damaged some of the struts inside one of the shuttle wings, and that it came very close to being a bad day because of that. So this this sort of event is hardly unprecedented.
So they still were able to fly it back successfully, obviously, but
That's right. But when they
when they went
over it after the flight, there was people were surprised, and and they realized that they kind of dodged a bullet there. And that wasn't really widely publicized. I didn't hear really that much about it until a few years later, and I was at a talk given by the commander of that flight, and he talked about it. So
Chris, you're Mr. NASA. I've often wondered what would happen if the umbilical at the top didn't let go when the rocket took off. Or is that even possible?
Well, I suppose anything is possible. The umbilical at the top, I think it would just snap it, and it would take a portion of the umbilical up. But the shuttles, and I assume Artemis, they are actually bolted to the pad. They are bolted down with great big bolts that, they're so big that if they fell on us, they would crush us. And they actually, there's actually an explosion that goes off to break the bolts. There's an expression they use when you want to, like in hockey, you don't say, oh, they scored a goal, they bent the twine or something like that. And the Lodge equivalent of that is blow the bolts. In other words, they actually blow them up. And then the rocket is free to go because they wanted to build up thrust to a certain level. And interestingly, the Russians don't do it that way. It's just sitting on the pad, and when it has enough thrust to go up, it goes up. But the Americans bolt them down. And then, of course, you have all sorts of pyrotechnics to separate the stages of the rocket and the various parts that come off, like the escape system. There's a whole ton of pyrotechnics on these things, and so, they, so far, at least when humans have been involved, they have never had a disaster, from those things failing to work.
How about that?
Lauri, you had a question?
I have a comment about the past Star Party that we just had on the Saturday. So if people want to continue this conversation, then I can comment a little bit later. I just wanted to kind of put my name in for something that needs to be said later on. That's all. So.
So does anybody have anything else they'd like to add? Any other topics they wanted to bring up? Or
yeah, could I just finish up one question for Chris Gainor?
Yes.
Chris, just in terms of the timing of the bolts blowing, I mean, in terms of the launch sequence, is that what happens at the end of the countdown, or does that happen several seconds after the countdown's over?
The way they do it, it's at the end. It's at the end of the countdown. So
because the engines fire.
For example, I think the engines on the shuttle orbiter, they start to fire. What is it?
3 or 4 seconds.
3 or 4 seconds before T-0, and then at T-0 is when those solid rockets light up, and that's when they blow the bolts at T-0. Different countries, they sometimes decide that T-0 is when they actually start to light the engines, and then it sits there for a number of seconds. I think in the Saturn V, you remember the countdown. They always said ignition sequence start, which is about T-9, and then but you would see the fire coming out about T-6, and then at T-0 they would destroy the bolts, and up it would go.
Interesting. Thank you.
I know with the shuttles and any of the systems that use the solid boosters, that they can shut down the liquid fueled engines, but once they light the solid boosters, that's a commit. They have to let them go then.
That's right. And sort of a nightmare scenario is, say, one of the solids lights and the other one doesn't, sort of thing. I actually think they made them. They once made a movie based on that idea, but anyway, they make sure they all light. So
yeah, these last few they use multiple engines, and the engine rest position may not be exactly the same for each engine. Once they fire, they gimbal into the proper position. And so if you didn't hold it down for a second or two, you run the risk of the ship lifting off the pad and drifting one way or another instead of going straight up.
That's right. Yeah.
The one interesting thing I remember about the Apollo was when the rocket cleared the launch tower, that was the point when they transferred control over to Houston. So
that's right.
Cape Canaveral held the control for the launch, but the launch was considered finished as soon as the tail end cleared the top of the tower. just actually on the topic of the launches and hold downs and whatnot, has anybody here seen the video that was taken of the Saturn V launch? It was one of the technical cameras at the base and of the rocket, and it showed the actual launch sequence starting with the engines starting and the bloom of smoke that comes up from the engines, and then as they reach their full speed, everything gets sucked back down into the flame trench, and as the rocket the booster lifts up, you can see the darker cold gas sheath around the flame as it's coming out of the F1 engines. It's quite a remarkable video to watch. So, did anybody have anything else they wanted to add here, or?
John has his hand up.
John.
I've got a question for Lauri. I gave a talk at a gyro club in town recently, and I've just had an email message from them wondering about having a tour set up for their club up at the hill. Do you do that kind of thing, Lauri? I know there was one set up for the people at the place I live at, Berwick here, but that's probably a bit unusual.
No, it wouldn't be unusual at all. It would be something we would be happy to do, except that the road up to the hill has been closed to the public now as of the 17th of November until at least the end of December. So that was the NRC. The NRC closed that. And so we could probably get in touch with them and make some arrangement to do something in possibly a March or April.
Why don't I just pass this letter on to you and
thank you. Yeah, we'd love to. Yeah. Okay.
And Dennis has his hand up.
Yes, Dennis, sorry.
Yeah, I just have a curiosity question. I attended a session earlier as like an introduction to Stellarium, and I was just kind of wondering, is that software that many of the folks here use?
Yes,
look to be like quite interesting, quite good, quite in depth. So just kind of curious.
Yeah, Dennis, the other thing is that they just introduced the mobile version, which I really quite enjoy. Stellarium has actually been our planetarium of choice for outreach because it is free.
Yeah, the session he mostly talked about the free PC software, but he also did a little bit of a demo of the mobile app. So it was very interesting. So.
I really like the new interface. It's really, really good.
Yeah, it's something I'm definitely going to be getting into.
There's actually more than one course, Dennis, as well. There's the beginners, intermediate, and there's actually an advanced course if you want to manage your telescope mount with it as well.
Yeah, they actually talked about that, and they're planning on. They said they haven't done a lot of those recently, but in the new year they're starting to gear up on that. So yeah, it's definitely something that I think could be very useful.
Yep, highly recommended.
Great.
John's question brought up a thought that I've had sometimes. I would really like to get a tour up on top of the hill whenever the road is all fixed and they get past COVID and all this crap. Not the telescopes, but that new building they put up, and sort of some of the optical shops and things like that. Because I know absolutely dick all about what they do there. And I would like to, in part because people ask me. And I'm sure everybody here would be interested in that too.
That would be very popular.
They used to have.
Our members did go to some kind of an open house.
Yeah, there has been open houses in the past. Yeah, we definitely got sort of views of the NRC building. I don't remember whether we ever got to go to the shops at all.
But there's that brand new building that, you know, basically,
the new one.
You know, I think the only way we could have seen it is by breaking the COVID rules. So
this would be a great question.
There was a tour of that just before COVID, Chris, and there's often open houses there, and that's probably going to resume.
Yeah.
And in the open house, you get to go practically everywhere.
Yeah.
They put on a tour for the science fair kids, and I got to be on it. And you know, scientists, they want to talk about their stuff. So I think if we ask in the right way at the right time, and they would really like an enthusiastic group like us to go up there.
We can make it happen.
Yay, Lauri.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lauri.
There was something that was actually going to be a whole open house for the IT building, and like literally just within a couple of weeks of COVID, and so it had to be canceled. There is an online video that was done by the NRC, and we have seen that. I mean, it's a great big huge empty building right now, right? There's some stuff, there's some infrastructure kind of around the edges, but it's a great big huge empty building. But it is really interesting to do that. Let me do some checking in and see what we can do for something when the road opens. Yes, Chris will get that done.
And something you may not know that I discovered when I was working up there, there's something called astronomer jokes. Just like there's accountant jokes and there's lawyer jokes. Did you know that?
Okay, Gary, you have to tell us one now.
I forget them, but I just remember there are. So we should come up with some of them for when we go to visit.
Well, most of them seem to concern, you know, guys with long beards and lab coats sitting at a telescope inside a great big dome, right? You know.
Yeah, we're wearing Birkenstocks, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah, well.
And the telescope always goes out of the dome.
That's right.
Those are cartoons.
Very good, Randy. That's right.
Well, I've rarely seen Jim in any footwear other than Birkenstocks. So
oh yeah, that's quite funny, actually.
There's a whole series of pictures that I've seen being they're stock pictures that are supposedly scientists doing scientist type things and being commented on by people who are actually in the field, and they're quite wonderful. Some of them involving wearing safety glasses to look through microscopes and stuff like that. So it's marvelous.
Which reminds me, there was one astronomer had a poster on his door. It was a game show from the States. We're getting diverted here a little bit, but this one's quite noteworthy. This person was asked, what's bigger, a grapefruit or the moon? And they chose the grapefruit on the game show. See, he thought that was important enough to put on his office door. So there you go.
I still remember the lady the author, her name escapes me now, who had written the book about astronomers, stories about astronomers, Last Stargazers, that was it, the title of the book, and telling the story of the astronomy assistant who went off his nut and started firing a pistol down the tube of the telescope they had. So the little, the very small.
Yeah, I think Emily said that the damage was nominal.
Yes.
But still there, as I recall.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just about to sign off here. I just wanted to check that Reg and Randy are coming to a meeting at 9.
I will be coming in by my telephone.
Okay, perfect.
I will be there.
We'll see you in a little while then.
Okay. Good night.
So Lauri did have something she wanted to say.
Yes, I was just there. There's Lauri. I see her
There
now.
I am. So I just wanted to say that we did have instead of our in-person star party that we should have had last Saturday for the FDAO, we had an online star party instead and put it just exactly the same kind of virtual program that we would have done. So it was Zoom for members, and it's on YouTube for anyone else in the public. And we had a wonderful talk by Dr. Tyrone Woods, who is the co-lead for the Canadian ultraviolet space telescope called CASTOR. Now, it's not going to be as big as Hubble, but it is going to be in a different wavelength. And he talked quite specifically about all the good things that CASTOR is going to be doing. They're looking at a launch in 2029 for it, and they're just at the point of getting all the science put together and going to get some final funding from the Canadian government. Let's hope that goes through. And he just gave a great talk that will be on our YouTube, the FDAO YouTube channel, and just all kinds of things that I did not know before at all. Like David, did you get that too? Like things that you didn't really know too much about that project?
Yeah, for sure. And it also reinforces the concept that astronomy is a multi-wavelength domain, right? We look at space in lots of different wavelengths.
Mm-hmm.
And that this is an HAA, led project by Patrick Cote. And, right here on our hill, right here in Victoria, this is being done. And sometimes we, as he says, we're so humble, sometimes we don't tell people about what we're doing. And like James Webb gets all of the big stuff, but in fact, CASTOR is going to be doing, much the same work, but in a different wavelength and with a much larger field of view than the other one. Anyway, I just wanted to say, if you'd like, he would be a terrific speaker to have if we wanted to get a speaker, and or go to the YouTube channel and have a look at it. It was really good. Thanks. That's all.
So it's fully funded now?
It's I think they're still needing some funding. They were talking about going to the government to get some of the final funding done. So
they have been working on that for years.
Yeah.
And and I've written a couple of things on it, although not for a long time. And I was quite dubious about it, but I like just them getting the money, but I'm less and less dubious about it now. And one comment about what it does is one of the great things that Hubble does is it does some infrared observing in the near infrared, not nearly as much as Webb. It also does some in ultraviolet. And right now, Hubble is about the only thing going in the ultraviolet. And when it conks out, that's kind of the end of the line for ultraviolet until something else comes up. And CASTOR is basically the something else.
Mm-hmm.
To make a long story short.
Yeah.
What was the aperture of CASTOR?
It's not very big. I think he said it was could it be as small as a meter? Or
I think it's about a meter.
Yeah, it's small.
1 meter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what he said.
But it has a much wider field of view than, say, Hubble. So it can cover a lot more real estate than Hubble did.
Yeah, he had
he
had a slide where he showed a mosaic done in the traditional way, and it was severely tiled. And then with Castor, it was only like, I think like 3 or 4 panels.
In no time. Like, I mean, in just in very little time, where the other one had taken a hugely long time and had about 340 pictures or something, like 340 of them. And this will have something like 5 or 6 and be done in like in a couple of hours or something like that. Like, so, I mean, just like, it's like JWST has kind of made very large gains. So will Castor. So hopefully things will work on that. So
yeah, this is kind of where things are going. There's more to these wide angle survey telescopes. JWST, not really the case there, but the Nancy Roman Space Telescope, which is the next one after JWST, also is kind of a survey telescope and can cover a lot of real estate, and you know, so we'll get much more of a sense of what the whole sky looks like in a particular, you know, set of wavelengths.
And isn't it in infrared?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
I think so as well. Okay. Anyway, so just thanks everybody. Our next meeting will be our next Star Party will be on December the 17th. Saturday, September the 17th. It will be our solstice party, and it will be online, and we encourage everybody to come. And Nathan Hellner-Mastelman will be our main speaker, so come out and support him. He'd love to see everybody's face. So thank you.
Will that be in person as well as online, Lauri?
No, we're closed. To the public right now, unfortunately, because of the road. So we're completely online until possibly even February. I mean, it's a huge problem for us, but we're just going to go along with what we can do and try to reach everybody that we can via our go back to the online work that we were doing before. So we'll get everybody a link so that we can get people on there. And David and Dave and Brock has showed some beautiful pictures for us as well. So we were really pleased about that. And some very nice pictures from Plaskett as well that Dan Posey has done. So, all right, that's the end of my announcement and yeah, ad. There we go.
Can I show a quick picture of me showing my sister the rings of Saturn for the first time she'd ever seen it? Here. This is just in front of my house. And we have the moon, which did show up very nicely, but about 6 degrees above it was Saturn, and I got that delightful, oh wow, which I think is one of the greatest things that we can do for anybody.
Randy, you should be branching out to video, or at least have some audio.
That's what it's all about, Randy. That's what it's all about.
Sorry, there's another picture. Where did it happen? There we go. My 2 sisters are visiting from Winnipeg and from Ontario. And
that's special.
Very nice. So I got the telescope out tonight because we haven't really had any chance. It was a new moon and there was lots of clouds, but tonight was perfect.
So did you have any passerbys wanting to have a look?
I have a pretty quiet street.
Okay.
So that was just tonight?
That was just before the Astronomy Cafe.
Okay. Because it was nice on Wednesday night and Friday night.
Nice? You need a moon for me. It was a new moon. Yeah. We have a different definition of nice.
Well, Jupiter has moons. So does Mars. Mars was fabulous on Wednesday night.
Mm.
I threw a sketch into Zenfolio.
Actually, speaking of Mars, if the weather is willing, I think the evening of December 7th is an occultation of Mars by the moon.
Wow. Not for us.
Pardon me?
I don't think for us. And that's also
I think it is. I had a quick
opposition.
Look. Yeah, it is. I think I put it in my calendar.
It's in my yeah. I had a look just this evening in Sky Safari. Actually, it looked like it's going to happen.
I guess I was looking later at night.
Yeah, I think it's just before 2000, just before 8, maybe around. It'll probably disappear around 6:45 or something, and then reappear around 8.
Will it be up for us?
Yes, it appears to be.
Just barely.
Unless 30 degrees. Unless my Sky Safari location is wrong, but I don't think so.
Okay.
Have a look, anyways. We'll probably talk about it next Monday.
That's opposition, also.
Mm-hmm.
That's a night of opposition.
Yeah, and maybe Brock will be out there imaging another picture of Mars.
And it's a good night for looking at Mars because Syrtis Major will be facing us for a period of time, which is the easiest feature to sort of make out. It's not the boring side.
Yeah, well, yeah, it'll be a more interesting feature side.
The Observer's Handbook says exactly what you said, David.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. As long as the weather cooperates, of course. Any predictions, Reg?
It's Snowmageddon.
It doesn't mean we can't try.
Tomorrow afternoon and on Friday. But I don't know what date is that?
The 7th.
A long time.
Oh.
That's a ways off.
Yeah, I'm not going to stick my neck out for that.
So not Snowmageddon, Snowpocalypse.
Snowpocalypse, yeah. Very official terms.
I love to watch Victoria fall apart in the snow. It gives me great pleasure every year.
When I
I'm from here.
When I worked at the Vancouver Sun, we had a term for every time Vancouver was hit by snow, the story was invariably called inside the newsroom the White Hell story.
Yeah.
You would just be handed a memo and it'd just say White Hell on it, which meant that's the story you had to do.
Right.
Well, I think you guys have got to get out of the room, right?
Yeah, we got to start.
You have 2 minutes.
Yeah.
2 minutes.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Anyways, good night.
Thanks, Jeff, for putting our clip for getting together there, Jim.
Well, good night, all.
Good night. Thanks.
Good night.